Hey everyone, it's Pinnacle from Rock Daydream Nation, and I've got the Parish of Rock back to the channel. Welcome back, Parish. Good to see you. How's it going, mate?
Thanks. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm enjoying we're having a very hot summer over here in the UK at the moment, so
I
enjoying that.
hear.
So
I hear. Oh
yeah,
well,
very good.
put the fan on. We're going to talk about some hard
Yeah.
and heavy Aussie rock, and we're going to talk about an album from AC/DC which cops a bit of flack, much maligned, and the album is "Fly on the Wall" from 1985. The theme of today's show is "In Defense of." So this album, as I said, came out in 1985. A bit of a drop in the US, only reached number 32. I think it really crawled to gold certification. In Australia, went to number 4 and UK number 7. So this is the lineup of Brian Johnson on vocals, Angus Young lead guitar, Malcolm Young rhythm guitar, Cliff Williams on bass, and Simon Wright on drums. First question to you, Parish. Did you buy this album in the day?
I did. I got it on cassette because at the time I tended to buy cassettes rather than albums because I could just play them in the car when I was driving
Yep.
down for work.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, got it at the time, and I'll give you my thoughts on it at the time a bit later. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I didn't buy this in the day. And look, I can't tell you how many times I've been in various record stores and held the album up, and maybe it's time I buy it, and then just put it back. So I think part of it is, the whole concept on the Fly on the Wall is completely daft. The album cover. Let's be honest, it's not very good, is it? You've got this little caricature cartoon fly and an eye in a hole in a fence. What's this all about? It's completely cartoonish comparative to AC/DC, isn't it? What you would expect.
It's very rare
Yeah,
for there to be an album cover without Angus on the front
yeah,
or or, or on the back,
yeah.
in a major form. So yeah, a bit of a
That
and following what had been 3 very simple album covers, and then they've gone to something that just is an AC/DC. It doesn't look anything like any other AC/DC album cover, I don't think.
Yeah, look. To be honest, a lot of their album covers aren't flash, but this one was kind of really scared me off a little bit. But I did have some familiarity with the songs that got played a little bit on radio, rock radio in the day, and music video shows.
Yeah, it didn't do particularly well over here. I think there was still a good live act and a live draw, but the album was slated in Kerrang and the music press. The singles did nothing at all. And I think the decline had actually started with the previous one. I think after all the polish and the sort of production of Back in Black and For Those About to Rock, this is a very raw album. And I think that turned a lot of the sort of the casual listeners, if you like, off. And I think this just then continued the decline, really, from that point of view. And I think that they produced both those albums themselves, didn't they? And I don't think that helped. I think they lacked an external producer, I think, on the albums.
Yeah, produced by Angus and Malcolm Young. So,
Yeah.
look, I think this has got more polish than Flick of the Switch. Another thing was the video clips were kind of annoying. They were very American. So it had a similar theme where they're basically on stage and there's all this action with all these wacky characters and storylines revolving around them being on stage. So I think economically it made sense. They just stay put, mime to the songs, and then, the director can fill in a backstory, but it didn't really, have that necessary cut through. All right, so what we'll do, we'll talk about the songs as we normally do, and that'll be a way to navigate what our feelings are regarding the album and, any sort of recollections from the past. So the first song is Fly on the Wall. So, the first thing that hits you, it's got the punchy traditional power chords. You've got a metronomic snare drummer, Simon Wright. You'd know straight away that, he's not Phil Rudd. There's something, he's got a different there's subtle nuances about his drumming that, dare I say, it's a little bit more busy. So Phil Rudd is just four on the floor, meat and potatoes, but Simon Wright is just that little bit more fancy, not much, but I'm talking by decimal points. And another thing I notice about this song is Brian's vocals, they're really growly, but he's way back in the mix. It's not like he's in Mutt Lange, in those albums Back in Black and For Those Who Are About to Rock, We Salute You, his vocals are way up in the mix. But in this one, and maybe, I don't know, it's a deliberate tactic by Angus and Malcolm, his vocals are brought back in the mix, way back. What are your views on this song?
Well, before I talk about the song, I'll just talk about that comment about his vocals back in the mix. I mean, I agree, his vocals are back in the mix. But I find it ironic that one of the big complaints about the album, or two of the big complaints about the album, is that his vocals are very raw and maybe not as strong as they had been. But also, he's back in the mix. And I do wonder whether he's back in the mix is because he was struggling a little bit with the vocals. And therefore they were trying to cover it a little bit with the music that was going behind it. I don't know that but I do wonder, because I think his vocals are not as strong on this album as the previous ones. Or by the time you get to Razor's Edge, I think his vocals have seem to have got stronger again. But having said that, though, I like the vocals. I think it does give it something a bit different. If this had come out 5 years later, you would have said he was purposely trying to sound a bit grungy with his vocals. He was trying very hard to fit in with a different sound. And also, extreme vocals were beginning to come in with thrash and speed metal and death metal around this time. So I think unintentionally, maybe he was actually getting into this kind of extreme metal or extreme vocal sound with what he was doing. So I don't think he was intentionally doing it, as I say, but it is interesting what else was going on around it. As far as the song's concerned, I think it's really good. I think at this stage, almost from those about to rock up to, well, almost on every album after that, they've been very good at picking the lead song, the title track, the album opener. I think they're very good at that. And I think they've done it again here. I think Fly on the Wall's a really good opener. It's got a great riff. Straight away, you know it's AC/DC. Straight away, you know they're not trying to become hair metal. They're not trying to become a thrash band. They're just or being anything else. They're just going to be AC/DC. So I think it's a good statement of intent. I think the pre-chorus is very catchy. I think the chorus itself is very good. It's almost got a bit of a political message in there about flying the wall and being watched all the time and not being able to get away from the media. Having said that, though, this is AC/DC, so that might just be coincidence. It sounds like there might be a political message in there. I don't know. Yeah. But I love the opener. I think it's a real good statement of intent. And, I think it's a great song.
Yeah, I was caged like a zoo animal. The whole song's describing being trapped and watched and cornered. Yeah.
So and there's a great clip. I say great. There's a clip of AC/DC on Top of the Pops doing. I think it's Touch Too Much. So it would have been 79. And Angus Young, that's exactly what he looks like. He looks like a caged animal. The way he can't move about the stage. He's just got to stand in one place. That's exactly what he looks like, as a caged animal. And you do wonder whether they felt a bit like that with what was going on around them with the media and all the attention and being told to do this and that. And there's lyrics in there about the fly on the wall, about you can't say something in the room. There's flies on the wall listening into. So as I say, it's got a bit of a for AC/DC anyway, a bit of a political message, I think, in there. But yeah, I think it's a great song.
Yeah, I like Angus's guitar solos on this album, and this song is it's heavily influenced by Chuck Berry, but it's got that really spiky, spidery tone. It just punches out of the speakers, and you just know Angus, he's on the money on this album. All right, Shake Your Foundations. I think, Parish, this is probably one of the album's strongest tracks. It has the classic Malcolm Angus riff formula, and it's got a huge chorus. This is the song I'd use to argue that Fly on the Wall is kind of underrated. Now, another thing about it, it's got a very big sound. This actually has a big sound. Like Fly on the Wall may be a little bit underproduced, but this one is the opposite end where it's kind of, I don't know, I don't know if the word's overproduced, but it's got a big sound. Like even in the drums, there's a bit of reverb. I love Angus's guitar tone on this song. It's bluesy, it's slightly buzzy, and its subtle charms, deliver. What do you think of Shake Your Foundations?
I'd agree with you. I think it's, along with a couple of others, the best song in the album. The one we just mentioned, Fly on the Wall, I think is really good, and there's another one we'll come to later as well. I'm not surprised it was a single. It's very catchy, got a great chorus from that point of view. I think the solo is very typical AC/DC solo, but I still think it's really good. Some of the complaints at the time was this was very sort of generic, almost sort of cookie cutter, if you like, AC/DC, paint by numbers, whatever you want to call it. And I think there is an aspect to that. But then at the same time, accusing AC/DC of sounding like AC/DC is like accusing Rain of being wet. I mean, what do you expect, really? It is what it is. And therefore, I think as long as they, AC/DC do it in a good way, it doesn't matter that it sounds like, that's their charm. And that's why I think at the time it would have been easy for them to change, like a lot of other bands did, to fit in. And AC/DC just didn't. They just continued being as they were. And I think the difference is whether AC/DC write good songs in that style or don't. And I think this is a good song. I think it, as I say, catchy chorus. It's a good single. I also think Brian's vocals sound pretty good to me on this particular song, and some of the other songs not so much. But I think his vocals sound better on this. So yeah, definitely one of the top 3 songs on the album. Yep,
I agree. First Blood. So this is spare, aggressive. The power to me is the space between the notes. It's tough, it's aggressive, and it's got the gang. It brings back the gang vocals that were, on Back in Black, Highway to Hell, For Those Who Are About to Rock. What do you think of First Blood?
Yeah, a lot of the comments I've got, I think it's a heavy song. I think the opening riff's really good. It's kind of got that thing that AC/DC do quite a lot, where they have the guitar and then the guitar drops away and then the vocals, and you just got the bass and drums behind the vocal and the guitar kicks in, and that kind of interchange, and they've got that for the verse, and I think that works really well. You say big AC/DC style, not hair metal style, but AC/DC style gang vocals in the chorus, and another good solo, a really strong solo. So I would say 3 songs in, and you'll wonder what the criticism of the album is, really.
Absolutely. Other than maybe they were delightfully unfashionable, because what was big in 85? 85 was hair metal, heavy metal, hard rock. They were going against the trends. They're just uncompromising and just doing their thing.
And maybe it's too often. I mean, nowadays, it's almost unthinkable that you're doing an album every couple of years. So you had 79, 80, 81, 83, 85. Maybe there'd been a slightly bigger gap. People would have been looking forward to a new AC/DC album. Maybe it's just there's not enough of a gap between some of the albums compared with what you'd get today.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this next song I think is an absolute killer, and it's a bit of an outrider, and I'll I'll discuss why. Firstly, it's got a different type of vocal from Brian. It's less growly, it's cleaner, and it's a little bluesy. It reminds me of some of his vocals from that band he had in the 70s, Geordie. Yeah. And I love the guitar intro where it's just kind of this really brooding strumming of the notes, really a sharp strumming of the notes. It's different. It sets up something that's kind of ominous, brooding, atmospheric. And then when it goes to the bridge of the song, you've got this big, beefy sound. It's wrapped around Angus's guitar line. I don't call this a deep cut. I think this is one of the top 3 songs in the album. And Brian, I think Brian sounds great. The groove is tight, and it's very convincing. What do you think of this song?
I think this harks back to me to some of the earlier sort of Bon Scott bluesy type AC/DC songs, and I like that because I think a lot of that gets lost in the Brian era. There's not enough of that other kind of style, so this has definitely got it. Particularly in the verse. I mean, it's quite as you say, it's quite a menacing intro, and then the verse itself is quite slow and bluesy, and then the guitar ramps up for the chorus, and I like that. It kind of that there's quite a change in pace between the chorus and the verse, and I think that's really good. I think the solo's really good on it again, and if you're saying that AC/DC just sounds exactly the same as everything else by AC/DC, I think this is a song you could point to that, whilst it's, as I said earlier, like the Bon Scott era, you would have expected to hear this kind of song on there. It's a bit of a surprise to hear it on a Brian album. Certainly, 4 albums in, and I think that's good because that's showing that actually there's more versatility. First, within that AC/DC range, there's more versatility than people give it credit for, really.
Yeah, look, when you hear a song like this, I guess the criticism, and, it's a quibble, is that I'd like to hear more of this on the album because it certainly indicates a willingness to go outside the box and try something different. And there's some sonic elements that I really, really like on that song. So, playing this album ahead of this show, and I hadn't heard this album in such a long time. This is the first thing that sort of stuck out for me, and I'm going, ooh, I really like this. This is kind of different, and it's something that I just wish they probably did a little bit more of in the Brian era. Sink the Pink. Well, Parish, it ain't Shakespeare. It's tongue in cheek. It's a bit Benny Hill, and I don't think we need to talk about the lyrics. But one thing I want to talk to you about is when you break down the sonics of this song, I can see the seeds being sown for Thunderstruck. There are elements there that are kind of similar. I think Thunderstruck took a lot of the riffage and the elements of Sink the Pink and just sped it up. So maybe it's just me, but that's one of the things that I thought about Sink the Pink. Look, it's catchy, it's sleazy, it's got a memorable chorus, it's fun. Just don't take the lyrics terribly seriously, hey? What do you think? What do you think of this one?
I think they obviously like it because it's also on Who Made Who, I think, isn't it, as well? So they took it forward. I noticed it was a single in Australia. It wasn't a single over here. I think the problem with these lyrics is, and there's a couple of songs like this. When Bon Scott did lyrics like this, it was like with a wink and a bit of a cheeky smile, and you knew he wasn't taking it too seriously, and he had that kind of. When Brian does it, it just feels sleazy and a bit like
bit leery. Bit leery,
man in a raincoat kind of thing. So I think they would be better off to avoid these kind of lyrics really in the Brian era. But strip that away, ignore the lyrics, which to be honest, again, his vocals are pretty down in the mix, so it's pretty easy to ignore the lyrics. I think if you take the song itself, I think it's a pretty good song. Yes, it's a bit generic, I guess, but yeah, I think the song. I hadn't thought about
The thunderstruck bit.
the thunderstruck angle, so I'm going to
Yeah,
definitely have a listen to both of them after this, back to
yeah.
back,
Just
and see what.
how they do
Yeah,
the couplets,
yeah,
the
yeah, I
repetitive
can
bit.
see. Yeah,
It's sort
I
of
think I can see
planting a
where you're coming
seed.
from. Yeah,
Yeah,
so yeah, ignore the lyrics and just listen to the music, and you'll be fine with this song.
yeah.
And let's be honest, it's not untypical of some of the other lyrics that were coming out in '85 from the hair metal scene, etc. So it's not like
No.
the only ones doing this kind of
Yep.
sexist lyrics. So
Yeah, yeah. They were. Yeah. They can't be accused of being the only guilty party. Interesting. The video clip was all based around a pool game. I'll let you
yeah, well
guys
there you
discuss that
go.
amongst yourselves. Playing with girls. Well, from Shakespearean to more Shakespearean. It's energetic. It's a little bit predictable. It's got this steaming sort of boogie shuffle. The chorus does remind me of AC/DC with Bon in the mid 70s. So, out of all the songs on this album, this is the one that kind of does have a bit of an echo to the early AC/DC albums, for those who, those albums that he did in the, 1975, 76, 77. What do you think of this song?
Well, the open. I mean, I can't say I noticed this at the time, but playing it again recently, that opening ooze kind of thing at the beginning made me think of Kiss. It sounded very Kiss-like before it kicks into an AC/DC song. So it almost sounded like Paul Stanley right at the beginning. Other than that, I think it's okay. I think it's kind of the lyrics again aren't particularly good. I think it's fine. I don't think it's as good as some of the other tracks on there, but I've got no criticism of it. But it's got a decent riff, to be fair, which maybe is what you're saying about the feel of the 70s. I think it's got a good riff. And yeah, it's fine. I think it's fine, but it's not one of the better songs on the album.
Yeah, that's a fair call. Stand Up. This has got a lot of attitude, swagger, and adrenaline. This is a bit of a defiant song. And Brian's vocals are really pushing it. There's a moment he goes into the higher register, and it sounds like he's completely losing it. But they left that take on the album. I think it's in the middle of the song, and it's the climax, and it feels like he's really just losing control of his vocals. Yeah, this has got the personality of AC/DC all over it. What do you think of this one? Stand Up.
No, I think well, the lyrics. I mean, not the lyrics, the vocals. I tell you what sprung to mind with the vocals was. I don't know if you picked up on this at the time or thought this at the time, but there was a period in the middle 80s when Bruce Springsteen seemed to think that he had to sing with a particularly strong growl with all of his vocals. He kind of became almost like a caricature, and I think that might have been the record companies pushing him to say this is what Bruce Springsteen should sound like. So you heard it on Back in the USA album, for instance. And it almost, as I say, sounded like a caricature. Now, I think there's a bit of that on this song. It's almost like he's trying to sing like he thinks he should sing like, if that makes sense. That he's over trying to sound like signature Brian Johnson vocals. As you said earlier on I think it was on Danger, he's actually got quite a good range, and he doesn't have to sound like that growler all the time. But I think he thinks he's that's what people expect him to do, and I think on this song that's what he's doing. I think he's very very much playing to character and trying, which is why I think he's struggling at that upper range on it. But having said that, though, again another good solid song, and the lyrics are fine. The lyrics are kind of typical. Well, the verse and the chorus kind of differ. There's bits of it that sound a bit like an All Night Long or Hot Blooded, where he's at a concert and he's talking to the talk to the female fans, and then there's other bits where it's more of an anthem about we're going to fight back, and I think that second part of what the song is about is what takes it above being just another rock song, I think. So yeah, another good song, and again, good riff on it as well. So
yeah, well, I think Back in Black kind of was a bit of a rod in their back, in the sense that it sold 25 million copies. It's one of the biggest selling hard rock albums of all time. And he may have felt straitjacketed. This is the way I've got to sound. You know, so for those who are about to rock, we salute you. Let's face it, was a carbon copy, didn't do as well. And then they rebelled against that and did something that was kind of garagey with Flick of the Switch. And this album, they've gone in a different direction where it's got a bit more polish. But to me, I think that, Brian's got his foot on both. On one aspect, he feels like he's straitjacketed to do that really growly, razor blades, I've had a bottle of whiskey the night before vocal performance, but there are some echoes of going outside the wheelhouse, and that's what I want to see more of, you know what I mean? I don't know, success can be a straitjacket, can't it? I'm saying that in a long-winded way, but
no, I agree, and I think at this stage, that's what, and particularly on this song, I think that's kind of either he or the record company are pushing him to stay within that limitation, I think.
Yeah. Hell or High Water. This has got all the AC/DC elements. Meat and Potatoes drumming, Malcolm Young's driving guitar chords, Angus with the razor-sharp riffage and a spiky guitar solo, and Brian's vocals, again, per the production. I'm not sure it's been mixed as well as I would like it to be mixed. It's a little bit not as clear on this one. So what's your opinion of this song?
This is one of my favourite songs in the album. I think I think the opening, which has kind of got that guitar sound that Angus does on Save for Those About to Rock, I think that kicks in really well. I think you mentioned earlier about Simon Wright's drumming is a little bit fancier than
a little that much.
A little bit. But that's not hard, is it, to be slightly fancier than Phil Rudd?
But just a little. I mean, you're an ex drummer.
Yeah.
So I think a little bit.
But what it is. But what I think he lacks is Phil Rudd has a groove, and I don't think Simon Wright generally has a groove. I think he's much more
four on the floor.
Just plays it. Yeah, exactly, straight rock. But on this song, I can hear a bit of a groove on it. It's the only one in the album where I think, yeah, this sounds a bit more like Phil Rudd would play it, I think. So I like that, and it shows me something I've been missing on the other songs. I think the chorus is great. Does it sound typical AC/DC? Absolutely. But I think, as I said earlier, if AC/DC have the right song, their style is second to none. And I think this is a really good song. I think this could have been a single. I think this should have been a single, better than Shake Your Foundation. Better than Sink the Pink, as an example. And I think this might have changed the perception of people to buy the album, to be honest. One of my favourite songs on the album.
Question without notice: why was Simon Wright fired, or did he lead the band?
No, what happened was, as I understand it, is Phil Rudd was having an affair with Malcolm's wife or girlfriend at the time, whatever it was, and he got caught, so he got slung out the band. At the same time, a bit later, you recall Malcolm had some drink problem a bit later, and he kind of dropped out. When he dropped out, I think Phil came back in again for a bit. And then I might have my timing wrong, because he also left. He wasn't in the band Razor's Edge, was he? So he was kind of in and out a bit during the mid to late 80s. So, but yeah, I remember reading somewhere there was some shenanigans going on with Malcolm's either girlfriend or wife, whichever it was at the time, and he was thrown out of the band. And I don't know where Simon Wright's connection came in, but it was a fairly standard rock drummer, wasn't he? He was well known, etc. So he may have just.
Well, he ended up in Dio's band for a considerable period of time in the 90s and beyond. And do you think that his style of drumming probably suited that type of music?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I can see why somebody thought he would suit AC/DC because he's quite a simple rock drummer. I just think he misses that kind of swing. That Phil had. And I think also Chris Slade, who came in a bit later, sat somewhere in between the two. I think that Chris was slightly fancier than Phil, but also had a bit more swing to his style had a bit more of that swing to it than Simon Wright does. So I think he's slotted somewhere in between the two. But I don't think there's anything wrong with the drumming. But I do miss. You can definitely hear it's not Phil. It's not Phil.
Yeah,
on it.
you definitely hear. Well, I'll argue that Back in Business, which is another one of my favourite songs of this album, has a bit of groove. It has a bit of swing. This is one of the bluesiest songs on the album, and this, to me, sounds like they're channeling ZZ Top. Think of something. Yeah. Think of this song if it was a bit slowed down, different vocals. Yeah. This would be off an early ZZ Top album.
Yeah, well, I wrote down the opening riff is definitely a ZZ Top kind of influence or sound to it, so I'd agree. I like the fact that the verse is a bit different. It's kind of they're a bit longer. It's more like Brian's almost telling a story through the verse bit, and it's quite elongated, and you think it's going nowhere really, and then all of a sudden the chorus kicks in. And I think, and it's, I think it's a really good. I think it's a good song. I think the title is actually kind of ironic because I think with this album there were more Back in Business than perhaps people gave him credit for as well. And I think the guitar solo is really good on this. So I really like this song.
Yeah, I think it's one of the strongest tracks. And then you've got the closer, which is Send for the Man. Look, this is an uncompromising choice for a final song on the album. Again, it's meat and potatoes riffage. But to me, Parish, the hook isn't quite there. There's scaffolding for a song, but there's kind of nothing inside that's truly memorable. Brian's vocals are even more craggy on this one than some of the rest of the other songs on the album. So it kind of finishes on I don't know, not on a strong note for me. What do you think of this song?
I agree. I think the opening to the song is quite good. I like the opening riff, but I think the chorus is weak. The song's okay, and I think if it'd been earlier in the album, it wouldn't be so obvious that it's not as strong as the others. I think they should have finished either with Back in Business or Hell or High Water. I think both of those would have been a much stronger finish to the album. It's okay, but it's nothing special, would be my view of the album. The song.
So, all in all, my summary of this album is I like it, and I've had it on my turntable a fair bit, and I am scratching my head. It's a real head scratch as to why this has got the reputation as kind of sucking eggs. I think it's a decent album. Is it top shelf AC/DC? Probably not, but there are many worse AC/DC albums in the discography than this one. And unfortunately, you know how we have shows and we talk about underrated albums, and sometimes there's public reappraisal. I don't think there's much of a reappraisal for this album. I think this still has a reputation as being a little bit of a dud, and I cannot put my finger on why. What about you? What's your reviews of this album? I'll
give my summation reviews in a minute, but I think I remember this at the time, but the Wikipedia page kind of gives the reception it had at the time, and I think it's still how it's viewed at the moment, which is that it was too generic. There was nothing new. It sounded like what had gone before. They complained that Brian Johnson's vocals were difficult to hear, and that he was struggling with the vocals. There's complaints around the sexist lyrics. And I think, yes, be fair, in all of that, I think there's some truth in it. You know, all of those things, there is an element of truth. But the fact is, I still think, despite the fact that the lyrics aren't very good, where you could say that about a lot of the Brian Johnson albums, that are there, you could say his vocals are low in the mix. But actually, I don't think that's a big enough problem that they make it out to be. I mean, ironically, I know most people will disagree with me on this, but I would say the same about Pyromania, Adrenalize. I always thought Joe Elliott's vocals were too low in the mix. And I also think on New Jersey, John Bon Jovi's vocals are too low in the mix. So it was almost a trend. I know both of those albums are slightly later, but I think there was a bit of a trend at the time to push the guitars up and take the vocals down. And it's only with some of the remixing that's happened later where that's kind of been balanced through a bit. I liked the album at the time. I didn't like this album at all when it came out. And this is one that's been reevaluated in recent years, and a lot of people now say it's a great album. I'm still not that... I mean, it's okay. I like it more now than I did then, but it's not one I like particularly at the time. So when this came out, I wasn't looking forward to it, to be honest. I bought it almost out of loyalty because I'm AC/DC, one of my favourite bands. And I liked it then. I much preferred that to that then. I thought that at the time the songs were good. I think the problem with vocals low in the mix is if you only listen to songs once or twice. But if you listen to an album over and over, and I did because that was in the car, you start to hear the vocals more. They kind of creep up in the mix, which is definitely what happened with Adrenalize for me. And New Jersey. After a while, you do hear the vocals. It's only those first couple of times. So if you only ever listen to it once or twice, you probably won't hear the vocals so much. But it does come through. So I liked it then. And I would say it's up until, Razor's Edge is really good. But I'd say this definitely is as good as, if not better, than the other albums in the 90s. And coming back to it, to do the show, because it's not an album, if I'm going to pick AC/DC album to play, it's probably not one I'd pick. So playing it again, I was surprised how well it stood up, actually. And my recollection was I liked it, and I still like it a lot. So yes. I think this is a good album. And as I say, I get the criticisms, it is typical AC/DC, but then it always is. You're never going to get a variation on that. So it comes down to the quality of the songs. Yes, the guitar solos are kind of quite typical Angus Young. But actually there's a couple on there, we didn't really talk about it, but there's a couple on there that I think are quite inventive, his guitar solos. And he does do something a bit different. So... And then Brian is struggling with the vocals, but hey, what you do, particularly back then, you either put a massive overlayer on the vocals, which they weren't going to do, or they struggle through it, and that's what they did. So yeah, I think I get the criticism. I kind of almost agree with the criticism, but this is a much better album than the criticism would suggest. Despite the criticism, I think this is a strong album.
Yeah, I think it is too. And, I think that the lyrics dropped off after Back in Black. And there's also a school of thought that Bon, a great deal of the words of Bon were assembled for that album. And I think that's got a lot of weight, but that's a show for another day. But look, the lyrics are no worse than the Razor's Edge and some of the other albums.
Well, he stopped doing lyrics soon after this as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
You know, so I suspect he was struggling.
But from a mute, I mean, yeah. Yeah, his vocals are in the mix. The production has got some quibble. I've got a few little quibbles here and there. But overall, I like the sonics. I still like the musicology. I like the arrangements. And I think, you know, there's some bangers. I really do on this album. So I don't get the hate for this album.
There was a bit of controversy at the time of this album coming out as well because... And I've forgotten about this until I read it again on Wikipedia, but I remembered it then, is that there was a serial killer in America that was nicknamed the Night Stalker that kind of spoke about Night Prowler as being something that had influenced him to do the murders. And I think there was a bit of a backlash against AC/DC. That doesn't reflect on the quality of the album, but I think maybe it reflected a little bit about their standing at the time and how people viewed them.
Well, absolutely. From selling 25 million copies, you know, like for those who are about to rock, that went to number 1. I think Back in Black hit number 2, but sold by the bucket load to this album, you know, charting at a peak of 32. That is a bit of a drop. So they were decidedly unfashionable, but they worked their way back into people's consciousness because their style of rock, nobody was doing. It's unique. It's in its own epicenter. And I think when you create a style of music, people come back to you, and they did. So, look, I think it's a head scratch. But it's still not highly regarded. I regard it. So, folks, Parish, thank you yet again. I think we've done a really fair defence of this album.
People should go and listen. Sorry to cut across, but people should go and listen to it again because I bet you a lot of people haven't heard that or listened to that in a long time. So, I think they should go back and have a listen.
Yeah. So, folks, put your comments. What are your favourite AC/DC albums? How do you rate this album? Good, bad, or indifferent? We love reading your comments. Please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. Lots of content on the channel. Me and Parish will be doing a show, just in a couple of weeks' time. So stick around. Please click the bell because that'll give you a prompt as to, the next show that's coming on the channel. Otherwise, you might miss it. So please do that. That's really important. But once again, Parish, thank you for coming on the show, and see you in a couple of weeks. And folks, see you on the channel. All the best and cheers. See ya.